Welcome back to the Soul Synergy Network podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Irma Elisheva Diaz. This is part 2 to the new face of grief. Last episode, I spoke about delayed grief and stacked grief. In this episode, I will speak about ambiguous grief. This is the grief with no closure. It is a grief that doesn't have a funeral. It doesn't have rituals. It doesn't bring casseroles to the door. And most of the time, it doesn't receive the compassion it deserves. This is the kind of grief that lives quietly inside people who keep functioning, who keep showing up, who keep saying, "I'm fine," while something deep inside them is aching. It is the grief that is most prevalent post-pandemic. This is the grief that comes when something has changed but hasn't ended. An example would be when someone is still here, but not in the same way. Or when life continues, but not in the way you once imagined. Ambiguous grief is one of the most common grief experiences of our time, and yet one of the least understood. So today, we're going to gently explore what ambiguous grief really is, why it feels so disorienting and exhausting, how it impacts not just your emotions, but your soul. And most importantly, how to live with this kind of grief without feeling lost, broken, or alone. As always, I'll offer tools not to rush healing, but to help you breathe, ground, and honor your heart in the middle of what has no clear ending. First, let's define ambiguous grief a little better. What is it? Ambiguous grief is grief without a clear ending. It is grief for something that is still alive, but fundamentally changed. It is the grieving of someone or something you cannot fully lose and cannot fully have back. It lives in the in-between. You may be experiencing ambiguous grief if, for example, someone you love is no longer the same due to dementia, or illness, addiction, or trauma. Or a relationship may still exist, but the emotional connection is gone. And this can happen in marriages, family relationships, in friendships. Maybe someone is physically present, but emotionally they're unreachable. Or you've lost a role or identity that once defined you. A dream or life path quietly disappeared. Your faith, for example, your worldview, or your sense of purpose has shifted. Or life simply did not turn out the way you believed that it would. And here's what makes this grief so different and also painful. You don't really know what you're allowed to grieve or if it should be grief. Again, there's no funeral. There's no ritual that surrounds it. There's no public acknowledgement. There's no clear moment that says this has ended definitively. No one says, "I'm sorry for your loss," because on the outside, nothing really looks lost. Psychologist Pauline Boss, who pioneered this concept, teaches that ambiguous grief is one of the most stressful forms of grief because the human nervous system longs for resolution and there is none. So if this resonates with you, hear this clearly. You're not being overly sensitive. You're not being overly dramatic. You're not imagining your pain. You're just simply human, and losses without closure still wound the heart and they confuse the mind sometimes. So let's look at why ambiguous grief hurts so much. Ambiguous grief affects the mind, the heart, the body, and spirit in unique ways. Number one, there's no clear beginning. There's no single moment to grieve. The loss unfolds slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. You look back one day and realize something's gone or something has changed for good that made you feel secure in your identity. Number two, there is little social support. You can't always say, "I'm grieving someone who's still alive," or "I'm grieving a dream I never spoke aloud," or I'm grieving the person I used to be. So you stay silent. And silence always deepens the ache. Number 3, you begin to blame yourself. You think, why am I struggling? Nothing officially happened, but you see, something did happen. It may have been a divorce. It may have been the loss of a job. It may have been the loss of a home or a parent who changed right before you, a partner who withdrew from you, a child who's no longer reachable, no matter how much you've tried, or a version of life that quietly slipped away. Please remember, blame is not in the equation of all that I just mentioned. Number 4, the loss keeps shifting. Some days you feel hopeful, some days devastated, some days you're kind of numb. This emotional unpredictability is exhausting. Your nervous system never gets to rest. Number 5, your love has nowhere to land. You can't move on because nothing fully ended. You can't go back because things are not the same. So you live in this kind of emotional limbo. And limbo is one of the hardest places for the soul. Speaking of the soul, let's look at the soul experience of ambiguous grief. Ambiguous grief reaches the deepest layers of the soul, the spiritual center, if you will, of who you are. People often say things like, I feel guilty for grieving someone who's still here. Or I feel like I've lost something, but I can't name what it is I lost. Or I'm mourning, I'm grieving a life I never lived. Or maybe I miss someone who's sitting right next to me. Or I don't know how to explain this sadness. This grief can disrupt our identity, our meaning, our faith, our trust, our self-compassion. But beneath it all is one sacred truth. Your grief is a testimony to what mattered, what changed, touched your soul. And your soul understands loss, even when your mind cannot explain it. So how do we live with a grief that has no closure? Please know this is not about fixing ambiguous grief. It's about learning to live with clarity alongside it. And I may not have all the answers, but there is some food for thought that may help. Let me go into my tools. Tool 1, acknowledge the loss. Say it quietly or aloud. Something has changed. I'm grieving what was. I'm allowed to feel this. Naming calms the nervous system. What is named no longer lives only in silence. Tool number 2, allow 2 truths to coexist. By that I mean you can love someone and grieve who they used to be. That's absolutely normal. You can feel grateful and disappointed at the same time. You can accept reality and wish it were different. A lot of us are in that place. Holding complexity is a sign of emotional maturity. It's not failure. Tool number 3, create your own ritual. I'm big on that. Because there's no funeral, you create meaning. You can say a prayer, you can walk in silence, you can write it down in a journal, you can create a small remembrance space, some pictures of something. Ritual gives shape to grief, and shape brings relief. Tool number 4, set gentle boundaries. You see, ambiguous grief drains energy. So protect your heart. Limit emotional labor. Allow quiet time. Step back from triggering situations. Honor your capacity. Boundaries that you build are not walls. They are containers for healing. We must never, ever forget that. Tool number 5, release the need for closure. Closure the fact is, may never come. Not with ambiguous grief, but understanding can come. So you ask, what is it that changed? Let me name that. Why does it hurt? What did this mean to me? What part of me needs care right now? Understanding, clarity brings peace where finality cannot. Then there's tool number 6. Seek real moments, not perfection. If a person has changed, look for what is, not what was. A smile, a memory, a brief connection. All those small moments still count, big time. Tool number 7, go ahead and grieve without apology. You don't need anybody's permission to grieve something you're missing. Your grief is real because your love was real, your role was real, your identity was real, your hope was real. Grief always follows meaning, always. Remember these tools in the toolbox. And allow me to give a final word for the heart. If you are living with ambiguous grief, remember this. You're not grieving wrong. You are grieving something complex. You're not stuck. You're carrying something that has no clear place to land. And you deserve compassion for yourself, most of all. You're human. You're healing. And you're not alone. This is ambiguous grief. This is a part of the new face of grief. Am I saying that no one ever grieved before? No. I'm saying that sometimes history, sometimes the things that we experience, sometimes the things that happen in our lifetime bring us to a place where we are grieving in different ways. Ways that are different than people grieved maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Not to minimize that, but to say this exists. Keep these things in mind as you go through your journey of healing. And thank you for joining me on today's episode of the Soul Synergy Network podcast. If this has resonated for you, please share it with someone who may be carrying grief in silence. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode created to support your emotional, spiritual, and soul-centered well-being. If you'd like to connect with me directly, you can email me at soulsynergynetwork@gmail.com. May your heart find kindness today. May your grief find breath. And may your soul remember you are allowed to heal in your own time. Until next time, God bless you.